What are the 8 games in the Kirby Smart era that are the most influential? Not the biggest games, but the games that mattered the most. Dean Legge, Matt DeBerry. We're going to talk about this on another edition of Riding Home. You can see behind me. Make sure you're picking up DAWGSTRUCTION today. Matt, we've got 8 games. We're not going in order necessarily, but let's start with one of the most influential games in Kirby's time was 2017 Appalachian State. Where were you? I was on the field on the sideline when Jacob Eason got hurt, and he was trying to play, and they told him to get down. He never came back and played a meaningful snap at Georgia again because Jake Fromm came in right there after it.
Yeah, I was in the press box. I mean, it was the season opener. Everyone was excited about this team, what Jacob Eason could do in year 2. And then, what was it, second offensive series? He scrambles, gets hit kind of late on the sideline, and yeah, right. And boom. I mean, they were kind of struggling for the first part of that game. Yeah. Jake Fromm comes in, and that becomes one of the biggest what-if moments. What if Jacob Eason doesn't get hurt? What happens to that team that season? I mean, the program over the next 3 years, we'll never know because Jake Fromm took over and was the guy for the next 3 years. But definitely a game that changed the course of the Georgia program, especially with Jacob Eason, of course, being that 5-star guy who started pretty much the entire season as a freshman, except for the North Carolina game, the opener. He was supposed to be the guy to take them to that next level, and boom, third series, first game of the season, he's out. Jake Fromm comes in, and we saw what happened for the next 3 years.
Well, we've learned that the guy doesn't always turn out to be the guy you think. But in 2016, they were at Kentucky. They had just lost to Florida in a way that was just, they were dominated. It wasn't a blowout, but they were dominated.
Right.
They have to come from behind, I think, against Kentucky, and they drove the field with the game tied. Jacob Eason, this was as big a moment internally in the program because they drove the field to win the game, put it on Eason. He got him down the field. Rodrigo kicks a field goal and probably launches his career towards the NFL and helps them along the way to a national championship appearance in 2017. I don't think this game is thought about a lot, but 2016 Kentucky, I can tell you, was a big deal. Matt, what do you remember from that game?
It was just one they had to have.
Yes, that's the best way.
Struggling. You couldn't go and lose to Kentucky. They hadn't lost to Kentucky still since 2009, I believe, at home, and it's just something you don't do. You don't go to Kentucky and lose, even though it is your first year, as the head coach of Kirby Smart, first year guy, Jacob Eason. But I think people were wondering, when is this thing going to get rolling? It's kind of struggling. But then they go up and win a game like that, gives them some momentum towards the end of the season. It didn't really turn out the way
the next week they beat number 8 Auburn at home.
Right.
I don't know if that mattered or not.
I guess not considering what they did to Georgia Tech at the end of the year, but I think that's a game that we're talking about next.
Well, that's the very next game. Why does Georgia Tech 2016 matter? I'll let you go ahead and go.
Because a lot of those guys who came back for the 2017 season did not want to end their career with a loss to Georgia Tech. Sony Michel comes back. Nick Chubb comes back. Lorenzo Carter comes back. I think I'm missing multiple guys. But they were all guys who said, we're not leaving Athens with a loss to Georgia Tech. We're going to come back and try to do something special in 17. And that's what they did. And, I mean, they lost to Georgia Tech in 14. I mean, it was – and that still left a bad taste in people's mouth. And I think one of the big reasons that they had to kind of move on from Mark Richt, even though that was at the end of the 15 season when he was fired. But you don't lose to Tech. And I think that game, Kirby said in his mind, okay, this can't happen again. Can't lose to Georgia Tech. And who knows when the next time they will lose to Georgia Tech. It might be that game.
It doesn't feel like anytime soon right now, but, it's 2022. We'll just see. One of the biggest moments that secured that Jake Fromm knew how to get things done was the Notre Dame game up there. We drove 12 hours. I don't know how long it was to Chicago and back down to South Bend, but we were in the car for a while. And of course, that game was flooded with Georgia fans. Probably 50% or a little bit more of Notre Dame Stadium had Georgia fans, and they were treated to one of the all-time great games in Georgia's history, and a game that Georgia could have lost, but Rodrigo with a big kick, and then Davin Bellamy with a strip, and I think Lorenzo got the ball.
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Your thoughts from,
Yeah.
I mean, that was such a big, that was the hobnail boot
Yeah.
of Kirby's time, it feels like.
I think everyone knew Roquan Smith's name after that game as well.
Yeah.
He was having a pretty good career, but boom, 17, he was the best linebacker in the country. In that
Yeah.
game, he was all over the place. But I remember it was the hottest ticket in college football in years. It was the most watched game that we had seen in a long, long time. Everyone was talking about this game the
Right.
entire offseason. And you have Jake Fromm coming in, his first start after Jacob Eason went down in that App State game that we talked about earlier. Didn't play all that great, but made a few
No.
key throws, especially the one to Terry Godwin. But it was a learning experience for him. He got better going through that, and at the end of the day, he came out with a win, and one that really, we talked about it before, kind of turned that program around. At that moment, I think a lot of Georgia fans were going, "Oh man, this is a game we really need to win. It's close at the end. Are they going to make a play to secure it?" And they did, and we saw how the rest of the season went.
Well, we don't talk about the Mississippi State game because that's the game where Jake, I think, came into his own. The Notre Dame game, he was just trying to just
Yeah.
do all he could do. I think if they played that game again a couple of weeks later, Georgia would have really rolled past Notre Dame. But that night, Notre Dame, I'm trying to remember, they had the lead late. I don't know how late, but it was a nail biting game.
So Rodrigo gave them the lead, right? With like 3 minutes left to go, maybe a
Yeah.
little less than 3 minutes to go. I mean, if he misses that, they probably don't win the game. So it came down to the last couple of possessions for sure.
So yeah, I mean, late in this game, Georgia is down 17. So it became a field goal kicking competition. I mean, there were a lot of field goals in this game. Obviously, the beautiful catch from Terry Godwin, which I somehow got. But between Rodrigo and Justin Yoon, I mean, Justin Yoon hit 4 field goals for Notre Dame, which means they only scored a touchdown, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, they had
just
one
one.
touchdown. Georgia had 2 touchdowns and a pair of field goals, and it was enough to win them that game. The defense was legit, but it felt at the half like Georgia was the better team, but they lost. They were losing 13-10, and yeah, with 3 minutes and 34 seconds left, Rodrigo hit a 30-yarder. You got to hit 30-yarders, right, Matt? I mean,
Yeah,
like you
yeah.
can't miss a 30-yard field goal, and he made it. A few weeks later, they go down to Jacksonville, and what was one of the strangest lead ups to a game I think I've ever seen, which was Jim McElwain accusing. There was also some stuff with the university saying he wasn't being protected, his life had been threatened, he wouldn't cooperate with the university. And I mean, people can say what they want about Florida, but that's a legit place. They're not. It's not a clown show. And so you could see in slow motion that Jim McElwain's time was coming to an end. I could see on the field that day that Georgia was about to smoke some Gators hardcore, and they did. Florida wanted no part of being there that day. Georgia got up 21-0 in the blink of an eye, and Matt, they punished Florida the whole day long.
Yeah, I think I remember you saying after the game, just watching them warm up and their whole demeanor on the sideline before the game, like they didn't want to be there. They knew what was going to happen. Jim McElwain knew what was going to happen, and you could just see Kirby just licking his lips, ready to get his team out there because he knew what was going to happen. And they just ran up and down the field on them, did whatever they want. Sony Michel had a big game. We saw an early play from DeAndre Swift. Jake Fromm played well, but it was that defense forcing turnovers left and right, making play after play. Should have shut them out. I think Florida had a touchdown late in the game with like 2 minutes left, but just total domination. I thought Georgia would win the game easily, I believe, but I did not think it was going to be, a total bully fest the way it was like that.
Yeah, it was. And the Gators scored on a 9-play, 71-yard drive. Just a thumping of the Gators that we have, we've seen Georgia take care of Florida a lot, but that game in particular was a whipping, the likes of which we've not seen in a while, and who knows when we'll see it again. Later that year, and this was an important game. Georgia had gone down to Auburn and just not played well, right? I mean, everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. And Auburn played well that night. I mean, that day, whatever it was, afternoon.
Yeah.
Get to Atlanta, SEC championship game. There was a fumble. Uh, uh, Muckins Huckle. What was his name? Who blocked that kick? Daquan
Hawkins Muckle. Yeah.
Exactly.
There we go.
Daquan Hawkins Muckle comes through and gets a block field goal. Auburn just never seems to recover from that point forward, and DeAndre Swift is still running down that sideline in Mercedes-Benz with Kirby trying to catch up to him. Georgia wins 28-7. Why is that one of the biggest games for Georgia? Did it show? I mean, obviously they had not won the league, and I think 12 years, which is way too long. And why do you think that game was influential? That they were getting to fulfilling their expectations of themselves and of the fan base?
Absolutely. That's why you hired Kirby Smart to come in and change the program and do it in its second year to get the program like that. And to do it against Auburn, a team that kind of embarrassed you a few weeks before. They were the number 2 team in the country. It's one thing playing LSU in an SEC title game or Alabama, but to play a big-time rivalry, like that, and they thought they were going to win the game. I think their running back was a little injured. He was more
injured. Yeah.
When Roquan Smith tackled him 10 times throughout that game and forced I think he recovered the fumble the first play of the fourth quarter that really started to cement that game. But Georgia was the better team. They came out in Atlanta and took care of business and got them to the playoffs. So that was, what Georgia fans were hoping for all season, from App State to Notre Dame, Mississippi State, Florida, so on and so on, to get to that point, and they got the job done.
Yeah, it was really, it was really a moment in time that was one of the most special that we've seen. And what moved, you had a month of moving forward, knowing you were playing Oklahoma in the Rose Bowl, which is also another special reason why that game is on that list. We also have the 2018 Florida game on here, and I'll kind of explain this one a little bit. In the 2000, I have 18, but it's really the 19 game, right? Now hold on now, man, I'm confusing myself. In 19, they had already lost. Well, you can kind of pair these together, the 18 and 19 Gator games, but I think the 19 game, which was a lot Jake Fromm, Florida was down 17-3, I believe, in that game, and they had not really done much, but in the fourth quarter they really came back. That game, heading into it, a lot of Florida folks felt like Dan Mullen was going to outcoach Kirby Smart, and coming into that game, I did see, even though Georgia was favored, you did see a lot of people taking the Gators kind of as a reason, they thought they'd win. That's not at all what happened. I mean, I can't remember the exact score. It might have been 24-17, just period. But I do remember Florida could not move the ball, and then all of a sudden kind of came flying back. They lost 24-17, but they were down 17-3. 16-3 going into the fourth quarter. And if you remember correctly, this is one of the biggest plays of Georgia Florida lately. Jake Fromm 52-yard pass on that. It wasn't a trick play, but it was Lawrence Cager just flying down the sideline. Nobody picked him up, and that really put hurt Dan Mullen's armor. Back-to-back losses to Georgia. This one not as competitive, more competitive than the 18 game where they lost by 21 or 20. But this one, this was bad because this was a good Florida team.
Yeah, that's the first time I said, okay, this Kyle Trask guy, he can actually play a little bit. He made some really nice throws at the end, but Jake Fromm, third, late in the game, they needed a first down to end the game, and they put the ball in the air, and he made a beautiful pass. I'm forgetting who it was. I think it was that Eli Wolf, the tight end. Beautiful ball, and that secured the win. But hard-fought game. I thought both teams kind of played well. Georgia just played better and made enough plays down the stretch. But the 18 game was pretty crucial too. But I think that 19 game is the one they had to have as well. But in 18, it was also Fromm because it was coming after that LSU loss. People thought maybe Justin Fields would be the guy against Florida. Kirby Smart stayed with Jake Fromm, and he had an excellent game. So say what you want about the guy, but he really played well against the Gators.
Yeah, I mean, in that game against Florida, Georgia took a 13-7 lead into the half, and then immediately, like almost 3 plays into the half, Felipe Franks hits Freddie Swain with a 36-yard touchdown, and the Gators are up 14-13. It was kind of unthinkable in a way that Florida would come back, but then Georgia with just a touchdown, then a field goal. And I thought, to me, they just ground Florida down in 18 with Terry. I mean, the play from Jake Fromm played great against Florida. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if he just clicked for him, but then that 33-yard run from DeAndre Swift with 3 minutes to go, 4 minutes to go. I think the game in 19 was more damaging for Dan Mullen. But they were both top 10 matchups, and Dan Mullen wound up only winning one of the 3 that he played against Kirby. But those games are the reason why this rivalry is so great.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the final one, and I'll let you kind of go here. 2021 national championship game against Alabama. Why is it one of the most influential games for Georgia?
I heard it was the biggest game, and I guess since the national title in 2017, but the biggest stage, right? This is what you play for to get to that moment. And we talked about it before, to do it against Alabama. It's not like you did it against Clemson. That would have been cool. It would have been cool to do it against Ohio State or Oklahoma or Notre Dame. But to do it against Alabama, the team on top who broke your heart a few years ago, it meant everything to the school, the program, the community, the fan base. I mean, that's what you play for, and it has to be the biggest. I mean, is that win bigger than the one in 1980? I mean, if you had to pick biggest wins in program history, I mean, it's between those two, and I think you can make the case it was the last game we saw.
They're both pretty monumental. It's a good question because I think Alabama now is probably bigger than Notre Dame was back then, but Georgia's bigger now than it ever was during the Herschel times. And y'all can at me all you want. I've got the data to back it up. More people watch Georgia now than they did in the 80s, so it's just what it is. But I don't know. That's probably a discussion for another time. The That you did it against Alabama, I agree with you. I mean, if it were Oklahoma, it'd be one thing. If it were Oregon or Ohio State or, enter the name of whoever, USC,
Right.
Clemson, whatever. Those are all great, noble places typically. But Alabama is your next door neighbor. They're kind of your idiot next door neighbor in many ways, and they've gotten it over on you for a long time. They've run the better program. And I think that, the losses in 17, 18, 20, and then 21, you stacked up 4 straight losses to Alabama, 2 in very heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching ways. That was tough. But this was influential because, when you're hanging banners and you're hoisting trophies, that really matters a lot. Confetti is not to be messed with. It is an important thing in the world of sports. And it finally fell on Georgia when they won the game. So I think, to me, it speaks for itself. But a lot of people before the game, in the years building up to this game, felt like the first national championship, if you want to say it that way, would be the hardest for Kirby. And with the narrow misses that they've had, I'd say it was pretty tough.
Yeah. And I think this also springboards the rest of the program into
That's
possibly more also. They had to get the first one out of the way, had to get that elephant off their back, and they did. We'll see how that win kind of propels them forward. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this game is bigger than the one in 1980. I think that it probably is. Football means more now, and it's such an industry. But for the program, at the time, Georgia was a regional power. It had a rivalry with Georgia Tech. It just plays Georgia Tech every year now. I mean, it's not really as much a rivalry except in the traditional sense. So.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody in 1980 thought that they would go 41 years. I thought they probably thought they'd go about 2 or 3 more years of winning the national championship.
Yeah.
They had the best player in college football history. Just didn't work out that way. And now we'll see how influential this win is. My guess is it's pretty influential. I mean, it's going. I mean, I don't think Georgia. I feel like Georgia will win the national championship at least one more time in the next 5 years, but we'll see.
Yeah, it might take another 4 years where they have a really, really special season every 4 years and some really good ones in between. Maybe, it doesn't take that long, but eventually they're going to have another special season again with a special defense that he's going to continue building. We know all the 5 stars that we might see in this 22 season who are going to get their opportunity. And again, if they can get maybe an Arch Manning and an elite quarterback back there who can, I mean, we've seen them win one without one in Stetson Bennett, who did a great job. But if you get, someone with an even bigger arm, maybe a more talented quarterback behind a special defense, it might not take much longer for the next title.
Yeah, but I'll tell you this about this past season, what made it so special. No, they did not play Notre Dame, but they beat Florida, Tennessee, Auburn, Alabama, Michigan, and Clemson. And, Clemson wouldn't have mattered as much except the fact that they've been so successful lately. But the rest of those on there are either bitter enemies or all timers, like Alabama and Michigan. So that's why this past season that game was such a big deal. And I don't know if the season can be replicated. Now I've said that in the past. 2017 was pretty darn special, but that involved a Rose Bowl. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for watching. Make sure you're checking out Dog Destruction in the link below, and we'll see you over on the website. Thanks for watching.